Welcome everyone. My name is Jose Anunciato, and I believe we're here for CS 4550. Is that correct? Am I in the right room? Right. Although this is branded as CS 5610, that's the graduate version of the course. We're going to be teaching it in tandem, the graduate folks and the undergrad. It's basically going to be the same exact material, but we give the undergrads a little more slack. I know you have a much harder time, have a much more things to do over the semester. The graduates actually have it easier than you. You have a much more challenging schedule, so we'll make it a little easier for you guys just to take that into account. For instance, one of the quizzes, the lowest quiz grade will be dropped. Some of the requirements for the final project will be optional. So there's several things that you should keep an eye where it says optional, or all throughout the assignments, all throughout the final project. You always keep an eye for those. Okay. All right, so this is me, Professor Jose Anunciato. We also have Vidoje is going to be teaching another section, and we're going to be trying to keep it together. You should also have received an invitation to join Piazza. Has everybody received Piazza? That's somebody not received Piazza? Okay, if you haven't, please see me after class to make sure that you get an invite. In there, you'll get links to requirements for the final project. You'll get links to this website too. You get links to all the assignments and several other resources that we're going to be putting in there. In there, you also find a little bit about myself, a little about office hours, TA office hours. So please keep an eye on Piazza. Also, that should be your the main mechanism by which we interact throughout the semester. If you have questions, please first ask them there. Chances are that there'll be other students that have exactly the same questions. If it's not there, I'll try to respond within the hour or so. The TA is also going to keep an eye on that, so they should be making sure that they respond to you promptly. This is the syllabus. Again, a little bit about myself, a little bit of my contact information. Here's my phone. That is the easiest way to get a hold of me. You have a question, just call me. I don't answer only if I'm in class or in a meeting. If I don't answer, just leave me a message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But feel free to text, and I'll try to respond right away. Other than that, Piazza is the second best way of getting a hold of me. If you're sending me an email, I do get a lot of email. So I've created a list which just filters and gathers all your emails using your Husky account. So if you do send me an email, please use the Husky email so that it'll go right at the top of my list, so I can see it right away. I can answer you. Okay. If we want to chat and you have run into a problem that we want to jump on a one-on-one. Again, I have office hours Mondays and Wednesdays from 3 right after class from 3 to 5:30. Come see me there Mondays and Wednesdays between 3 and 5:30. I have another class at 5:30. Other than that, all the other days I'm available on Google, to chat. I'm using Google Hangout. Just using my Gmail account. So jnuzzi at Gmail. So you can just give me a jingle on a phone and say, I'm stuck. Can you help me out? And we can jump on a Hangout and try to help you out. But the best way is that all the assignments and the projects are going to be submitted using Github. Okay. So if you have a question, the best thing for you is to first try to see if you can solve it yourself and try to debug it. That's one of the really good skills that you need to get familiar with. But if you spend way too much time, you think, maybe post whatever information you have on GitHub, copy the line of code that you think you've narrowed it down, right, and send a link to your GitHub so that we can quickly maybe bring down clone down your project, try to reproduce the problem that you're having, right, and be able to answer you intelligently. Don't just ask something very generic, very general, and not give us any feedback. Okay, so help us help you, right? Otherwise, if you ask something, yes.
Sorry, I was just wanted to clarify. Are we using the CCS GitHub or?
No, please use the public GitHub. Right, the school puts a few restrictions that let's use the public one. Okay. So if you don't provide the link, right, we're gonna spend a couple of back and forth messages saying please provide the link to your GitHub, right, and so it'll just take more time. So the most efficient is that tell us a little what you did, send us a link to the code where you've narrowed it down, right, and then we can go in and try to help you out. There's going to be 6 assignments, and everybody, I'm sure everybody realizes this is the summer 1, right? So it's half the time, same amount of material in half the time. Okay, so it's going to be very, very intense. Okay, if you blink, you're going to lose it. You're going to miss it. Okay, so it's going to be very, very intense from the beginning. Please, come to class. Keep on it. The semester just goes really, really quick. Okay, so just be on top of it. So 6 assignments, 6 quizzes, and basically it's going to be 1 week. Well, I'm sorry, I'm still in the spring semester. In spring semester, typically you have an assignment 1 week, a quiz the following week, and then an assignment, and then a quiz, and an assignment. It's 12. And then it's done. Here, it's much more condensed, right? So we're going to have the first assignment, right? And then the next week will be a quiz on the previous week, right? And then you have to work on the same assignment, and a quiz right after that. So it's really, really tight. Okay, so let's see. So no final exam. So that last week, that is slated for the final exam. The TAs and myself are going to be very, very busy grading your final projects. Okay, we'll try to make ourselves available, but that week is going to be very intense for us to grade everything. Okay, so we're going to have some limited availability that last week. Okay, so no final exam, but that last week we're going to be very, very busy. Also for the undergrads, the lowest quiz grade will be dropped. This is the grading. The largest portion of this is a project, right? So there's going to be a final project, which is going to be most of your grade. 40% of the grade is the final project. The intention is that you follow along with the assignments, and right away, right after learning a particular skill, a particular topic. The idea is that you either reuse the code from the assignment or you refactor it some way so that you then apply it to your particular project. Okay, and you need to come up with a topic, with a domain as soon as possible. Right? Again, especially because it's a very short semester, you have to come up with something that interests you. In particular, something for which you can find data out there, some data that's freely available, okay, that you can search, you can query some API that has public information that you can query from your web application, right? So you can query it, render it, show the details. I've provided a link to previous projects from last semesters, so you can go and peruse what other folks have done, right? A lot of people like to do movies and songs and restaurants, sports. But there's tons and tons of topics out there, so try to identify that as soon as possible. Okay, what is the topic that interests you? That's 40%. There's a link here for the requirements. I'm going to go over these requirements every week. Again, reminding you what are those requirements. We're going to go over them and over them so that you understand what exactly is being asked of you. Then starting back, the assignments has the second highest weight. Right, so 35% of is assignments. Again, 6 assignments. And so basically, we're going to handhold you building these assignments. Right, I'm going to start you off every week. We're going to go over what the assignment is. I'll give you a starting code. We'll do it here in class together. You'll see me do it, and then I'll ask you, okay, then you complete it. You go home and finish it off. Right? Finish what you've learned in class. Go on and complete the assignments on your own. And ideally, you should be able to grab what you've learned from those assignments and apply it right on your project. Okay? So assignments. So together we're going to be building a project, an application, an online application together. Everybody's going to be building the same application, right, in the assignments, right? But then you're going to go off and build, apply that knowledge to a project of your choice. Okay, right. So those are the two main categories. Then we have the quizzes. These are in-class quizzes. They are all using Blackboard, and they take 20 minutes maybe. And they ask, presumably, questions about the previous week, right? And the first couple of quizzes are not cumulative, but then they become more cumulative as we progress. Okay. So don't ask me what are the topics for the quiz. It's whatever we just saw the week before. Okay. But you can assume that it just builds up on its own, on the previous topics. They're all mostly either multiple choice or fill in the blanks. And so typically, I'll give you a snippet of code with blanks that you have to fill up, right? And you'll give me either a command or a variable or a class or an object to fulfill the code for it to run. Okay. Assignments, careful, right? Late, you will just pre-submitted by the time it's due. Basically, it'll be due every Sunday at midnight. Okay. So today's the first assignment that we're going to talk about today, it'll be due this Sunday, right, at midnight. Okay. After that, it'll be 1% deduction for every hour that you're late. So if you're late, 5 hours, then it'll be 5 points off. Okay. Right. So don't ask me if you need if I can give you more time. It's take whatever time you need. We'll just be deducting that many hours off. Yes. Obviously, if you take 100 hours late, then it's you don't get any credit, right? The other thing is that again, we're going to be using GitHub. Is everybody familiar with GitHub? Right? Anybody not familiar with GitHub? Okay. All right. Good. Awesome. So we're going to be using GitHub for everything for submitting our assignments, for submitting our project. Basically, at the end of the week, you're going to push your commit, right? And you're going to tag. You're going to create a release. Okay. Does everybody know what a release is? Well, you're going to release it, right? The code release, and you're going to tag it using either assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3, assignment 4. Yes, it has to be that tag. The TAs are going to clone down that tag, right? And they're going to grade you right there and then, okay, on that release. You're welcome to keep working on the following assignment, right? And don't worry about creating several versions of the assignments, right? That's the whole point of having source control, right? We can always backtrack to wherever you were at a particular time and space. Yes. Just release your assignment, and you can keep working on the next assignment right on the same spot. Right. So don't create a separate directory per assignment. Yes. Right. It's the same assignment all throughout the semester. It's one big project. If you need to make modifications because you forgot something or you realize that you missed something, you can just retag it. Okay, and retag it saying assignment 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and whatnot. Yes. We'll make sure to grade your very last version. All right. Okay. So on the GitHub wiki, we're going to be asking you to. There's always a challenge of folks, working on their assignment and leaving the project to the end. Okay, and then just rushing toward finishing everything up at that last month or month and a half. Well, here would be the last 2 weeks. So it would be. So I want to discourage that. I want to make sure that you start working that early on. Okay. So we're going to ask you to keep track of your work in a wiki, right? In a GitHub wiki, right? We're not going to grade this as we go, right? We're just going to, the timestamps are going to be there. That's going to be part of your grade for the project. Kind of these work together. This is just an incentive for you to start working now, right? We're going to ask you, the first. We're going to ask you to give us a description of the project. Again, you're free to do whatever you want, right? We're not going to say no. As long as you're within the boundaries of the requirements, you're free to do whatever you want, okay? So if you ask me, hey, how about this? I'm going to answer, the first thing I'm going to ask you, does it fall within the requirements, right? And if you say yes, then there's your answer, right? You only need to ask us if you have an idea that falls outside of the requirements, okay? If you have something that is fairly unique, that is really novel, that doesn't fall within the requirements, then we would like to support you, right? It's okay for you to have in your innovation and lots of things that people thinking out of this box I've created. But come and ask me, would this be okay? I'm willing to negotiate. Okay, and say, okay, well, how about instead of doing this, you do that, right? And we can negotiate whether that makes sense, right? It's also whether it's realistic to complete in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, okay? But if it's within the boundaries, you're free to do whatever you want, okay? So in the wiki, we're going to ask you every week to post something. The first one is a description of your project, a problem statement. How do you think you're going to be solving this? It's very generic, very high level. Just to get you thinking about it, right? Then we'll ask you the next week to give us a more or less sketch, a design, right? Of what kind of users would be using this? What kind of data would you be collecting? What is the domain objects that represent your particular domain that you're choosing? A little bit of design, all right? And what are the relationships between these classes? Right? We're going to ask you for a class diagram. Anybody has done 3200? Right, a few of you have done 3200. So in there you did some data modeling, right? And you did UML class diagrams. So something in that vein, right? You're going to be creating a small class diagram that represents your users, your domain objects, and what are the relationships between them. Okay? So in the third week, we're going to ask you to start choosing an API, right? A remote API, whether it's movies or songs or sports or restaurants that are around us or events that are happening around Boston. Whatever API you choose, right? Healthcare. There's tons. If you think of any domain, most likely there will be an API out there that you can query for free data. Okay. Choose an API. I hope by the third, fourth week you've already settled on an API. Okay. And I'd like you to start exercising that API. Can I query it? Can I get back a response? Can I render some of that data back into an application? Okay. So it doesn't have to look pretty, right? But it has to be functional. You starting to get familiar with those APIs that you can query and ask data. Then the last couple of wiki entrants will be creating a prototype, and then finally just completing your project. Okay, that makes sense. Right. So yeah. So this is trying to encourage you to start working now. And keeping a documentation and just logging your progress through your project. What else? Okay, so that's that. Any questions so far? All right. All right. This is the agenda. Notice that this has two agendas at the bottom. See that? There's Agenda Summer 2017. Okay, there's another section that is using the same material. And this is our agenda, Agenda Summer 1, 2017. Okay? Right, so you can go there and you click here, and this is our agenda. And this is, again, it's a very aggressive schedule. It's a very, very aggressive timeline. Our first week is going to be setting up our development environment. Okay, we are going to be using the main stack, being Mongo, Express, Angular, and Node.js. So that's going to be our technology stack. And so we're gonna be making sure that by the end of this week we have a working development environment. We're going to install our IDEs. We're going to be using WebStorm. It's a very popular, powerful IDE, very common in the industry for JavaScript developers, HTML developers, front-end developers. We're going to be installing MongoDB on our local machine and also on our remote server. We're going to have a local Node.js running on our machines. We're going to be doing all our development locally on our machine, and once we feel comfortable, we're going to push it to GitHub and deploy it on a remote server. Okay? By the end of the semester, you should have a working website with a working application. Notice we're not here to create web pages, websites. Right? That's not the intent of this course. Right? We're building web applications, right? Applications that happen to be running on the web. Right? We're using the web as a legitimate development environment, right? A development stack. So our interests are a little bit different, right? We're looking to how do we deal with dynamic content, how to access databases, how to access expose data services for other folks to integrate with us and access that data from a front end for rendering. Yes.
For the technology stack, are we limited to using AngularJS, or can we use Angular with TypeScript?
That would be awesome. Yes, that'd be great. Yes, we will support you. Okay, so that first week, we're going to focus on installing our development environment and making sure we're running locally, we're running remotely. We're going to install the database, even though we're not going to use the database for a couple of weeks. I want to make sure you already have it deployed, you already have it running. Okay, I don't want to wait till later and we're running around trying to set up the database. Make sure that you have that already running by the end of this week. Okay, we're not going to use it for a couple of weeks, but I want for you to be already set up. We are going to introduce the stack this week. Today, we'll build a toy application just to give you a feel for what it is to build a mean stack application using JavaScript in the front end. JavaScript, HTML, and CSS in the front end, JavaScript in the middle tier, and also JavaScript on the database side. JavaScript everywhere. It's taking over the world. So that's this week. The following week, we're going to be focusing on implementing the user interface, and that's going to be mostly making applications using HTML, CSS, making them responsive, following the mantra of mobile first. We know that most of the folks are using portables and small devices. That's the biggest growing demographics, and certainly we have to build applications that are that cater to this audience, right? So we're first going to make sure that our application works on these smaller screens, right? And then if we get a bigger screen, even better, right? But it forces us to think in a particular way, to identify what is the most important piece of information that we want to show, right? So if we have a small real estate screen, then it forces you, what do I want to show? What should show at the top of the screen? So it forces you to think in a particular way. So that's going to be this first week. We're going to implement most of a lot of the application that we're going to be working on this week, but static, right? Using HTML, using CSS, Bootstrap, and then the next week we're gonna refactor the previous assignment. We're going to refactor by adding AngularJS, jQuery, and other client-side technologies. Okay, this is a very common thing that happens in industry. Somebody gives us some Photoshop or gives us some sketches and some wireframes, and we're asked to create a prototype, right? That might look pretty, but doesn't really do anything. Right? That just exercises the navigation, makes sure that people are comfortable with how things are being displayed, the order in which things are being displayed, how we're breaking up the information across many pages. So it's a throwaway prototype. Yes, it's very, very common, and typically to elicit feedback from from our clients, right? What do you think, right? And also allows us to move things around without a lot of effort, right? So that there's no guts behind it, right? But it allows us to move things around as we get feedback. So the third week, we're going to go back and refactor this and focus on the client side, right? So we're going to add AngularJS, JavaScript, jQuery we'll introduce how to do routing, AngularJS, directives, controllers, and introduce MVC, Model View Controller. It's a very common design pattern that is, excuse me, am I yelling? It's a widely used design pattern of implementing applications that are dynamic, that allows us to divide the concerns of various portions of the application into these large buckets, the model, the view, and the controller. We'll come back to that a little later. We're not going to have classes that Monday, Memorial Day. So that's going to be a shorter week. But that's where we're going to introduce server-side development. All throughout, we're going to have a server, obviously, that's going to be hosting our application. But not until the fourth week, we're going to come back to it and start revisit that server. Okay. Because most of our development will be at the client side, right? Where we're rendering dynamic content on the client side. And the client side doesn't have access to any resources, right? It doesn't have access to a database. It has limited network accessibility. It doesn't have access to the file system. It's really a dumb client. It can't really do much, right? For everything, it needs to go back to the server to get data and things like that, right? So we're going to come back on the fourth week and talk about creating web services as the mechanism, the main mechanism by which your application will access the dynamic data. Okay, so we'll talk about creating web services and creating RESTful web services to post data, to retrieve data, remove or update data. Right. Then the fifth week, we're going to come back to it and add database support. Up to this point, we haven't had any place where we are storing any of our data. If you restart the server, all the data is gone. So on the fifth week, we're going to introduce MongoDB, and we'll do some data modeling, creating schemas and creating relationships between the various data types and our custom objects. Do some validation and avoiding SQL injection, and then store it in a non-SQL MongoDB. Some folks ask me if they prefer to use a SQL database like Postgre, or that's fine if you prefer to. But we will for the assignments, it has to be the NoSQL database, right? For your project, you might choose some other database, right? But for the assignments, please stay within the stack. Okay. And then the sixth week, we're going to introduce security and user management. So up to this point, we will have login and registration and whatnot. But not until we get to the sixth week, we're going to have secure login and registration, like making sure that the passwords they're not stored in plain text. We're not storing that in cookies. We're not storing it in plain text in the database. We're also going to be interacting with OAuth providers such as Google, Facebook, Twitter, so you can log in using those third-party authentication authorities, right? And also how to use user management, how to protect single-page applications from secure them, which is it's a little more challenging than securing server-side applications. Right? Server-side applications, you just have to protect the route. You just have to make sure that somebody doesn't get to navigate to a page, and that's it. Here, not only do you have to protect the not allowing somebody to navigate to a page, but also you need to protect all these services, all these web services that are exposing data. Those need to be protected as well. So it's a little more challenging than server-side applications. So we'll revisit that. And the last week, we're going to be doing some dynamic server pages. This is a topic that you might already be familiar with. Who has done ASP or PHP or Python? Any server side? Okay, so that last week you're going to be feel right at home, right? There's going to be a lot of server side rendering of dynamic contents, but rendering on the server side, not rendering on the client. Okay. Server-side rendering has been for us, for a couple of decades. It's a very mature technology, and certainly has its place in web development. It'll stay with us for quite a while, but we are transitioning away from server-side rendering towards a client-side rendering that gives us the capability of providing a much more responsive, much more immediate feedback to the user, right? The example that I always like to use is the very first single-page application I used was Google Maps, right? And before that, I used to use MapQuest. Anyone remember MapQuest? Yeah. In MapQuest, right? Both applications gave you exactly the same functionality, right? There wasn't something that you couldn't do one, but you could do the other, right? In both, you could zoom in. Both, you could pan right and left. And both you can search and routes and whatnot, right? And give you, but MapQuest was, you click, 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 and that request went to the server calculated, and then re-rendered the page from the server side, right? So it was very, very jerky, right? It wasn't direct manipulation of the data, right? Whereas MapQuest, right, you could just, you could grab the map and jiggle it around, right? You could just flick it. And it would just animate, right? Same mechanism. You could zoom in and zoom out and pan, but the experience was just completely different, right? It gave you an immediate feedback of that direct manipulation of the data, right? The experience is completely different because they're architecturally completely different implemented. One was single-page application where you do a lot of client-side rendering, right? You go back to the server to fetch data, right, behind the scenes. But the page never re-renders, right? You're always on the same page, right? It goes and makes AJAX calls to fetch data, and then you dynamically re-update the DOM, right? The document object model, right? Whereas MapQuest, those requests went to the server re-rendered the entire page, right? You had that flicker, that experience is just different. So anyway, we're going to be focusing on the client side, right? For most of our development here, single-page applications, all right? Any questions? All right. Let's look at the. Oh yeah. So and right in the last week it will be mostly just final project evaluation. So this would have been our final exam week, right? So but we're going to be very busy that week, grading projects. Okay. All right. Also notice the I've listed here project 1, project 2. Okay, those are referencing milestones, right, of where you should be, right, with your project as you progress, right. Those are referencing milestones in the project requirements, which we'll see in a minute. That's where you should be at that time, right. You should have already a description of the project. You should have an API already selected. You should have a class diagram and data modeling. You should have a prototype and whatnot. Yes? Okay. All right. Let me